6 days after the architect's ultimatum, human space was buzzing with activity like a kicked anthill. Captain Jiho had sent out the call, and humanity had responded in the way it always did when faced with impossible odds. They got creative. DTOM, Defiant Dawn had become the center of the largest scientific collaboration in human history. Ships arrived daily carrying the best minds humanity had to offer. Wanho, a military strategist who had never lost a battle, worked alongside Hewan, a philosopher who specialized in making people think differently about reality itself. The architects made one big mistake, Wanho explained to the gathered team leaders. They told us their plan. Now we know what's coming. But how do we fight beings who can change the laws of physics? Asked Taejin, the pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous reconnaissance missions. Our weapons work on the physics they created. Our ships follow the rules they wrote. Then we stop following their rules, Nari said simply. She had been working non-stop since the architects left, studying every piece of data they had collected. Look at this. She brought up a holographic display showing the boundary structure. The barrier isn't solid. It's made of energy patterns that convince our brains and instruments that physics works a certain way. But underneath those patterns, true reality still exists. So if we can break through the energy patterns, Dongyan began, we can access true reality, Nari finished, where thought becomes matter and consciousness shapes existence. Easier said than done, muttered Sunho, who had arrived from Mars with a team of resistance fighters. How do you break through something that controls the laws of physics themselves? By being human, Hewan said. The architects said we've been cracking their containment all along. Every time humans achieved something impossible, we were actually bending their rules. So we need to figure out how we did it, Jiho said. And then do it on purpose. Over the next day, they studied human history with new eyes. Every great breakthrough, every impossible achievement, every moment when humans had defied expectations, they found patterns. Look at this, Yuna said. She was a physicist who had arrived from Europa with theories that made other scientists' heads hurt. Every time humans broke through limitations, it happened when someone refused to accept that. The limitations were real. She showed them examples. The first human flight achieved by two brothers who ignored experts saying it was impossible. The cure for diseases that medical science said would never be cured. Space travel that happened decades before the technology should have been ready. It's like reality responds to absolute conviction, Yuna continued. When humans truly believe something is possible, when they commit everything to making it happen, the universe seems to bend to accommodate them. The architects said our species carries genetic memory from the predecessors, Nari added. Maybe that memory includes the ability to access true reality, even from inside containment. So how do we use it? Jiwan asked. The former merchant captain had been running supplies between the human ships, but she was also one of the best problem solvers in the fleet. We practice, Minho said. The soldier had been studying the architect technology they had scanned during the first contact. If thought can become matter in true reality, then we need to learn how to think correctly. They started with small experiments. Yuna worked with volunteers, teaching them to focus their minds in ways that might access true reality underneath the architect's constraints. Most attempts failed completely, but some worked. The first breakthrough came when Taejin was practicing in his fighter ship. He was trying to push his engines beyond their normal limits, focusing all his will on going faster than physics said he could. Suddenly, his ship wasn't just moving faster. It was moving in ways that violated everything humans knew about space. Travel. I'm not reading this right, Minji reported from the Defiant Dawn. According to sensors, Taejin's ship just teleported 3 kilometers without crossing the space in between. I didn't teleport, Taejin's voice came over the comm. I just decided that distance wasn't real, and for a moment it wasn't. More successes followed. Yuna managed to create matter from nothing, forming a small crystal that shouldn't exist. According to any known physics, Minho made his weapons work in ways that violated energy conservation. Dongyun built a device that powered itself by convincing reality it didn't need external energy. We're doing it, Nari said excitedly. We're actually accessing true reality from inside the containment field. But it's limited, Wanho observed. Small effects, brief moments, the architect's constraints snap back into place quickly. That's because we're working alone, Haiwan said. But what if we work together? What if we combined our will, our conviction that the rules can be broken? They planned the largest reality-breaking experiment in human history. Every ship in the fleet would focus on the same goal at the same time, opening a permanent hole in the architect's barrier. The key is absolute belief, Yuna explained to the fleet commanders. You can't hope it will work. You can't think it might work. You have to know it will work, even though logic says it's impossible. Just like humans have always done, Jiho added. We've been doing impossible things our entire history, this is just one more. The experiment was scheduled for the 5th day after the ultimatum, 2 days before the architects would attack. But the architects weren't waiting. Contact, Minji, shouted as alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple architect ships dropping out of folded space, they're early. The main screen filled with vessels that hurt to look at. Ships made of crystallized mathematics and weaponized physics. They moved, through space like sharks through water, reality bending around them as they approached. So much for 7 days, Donghyun muttered. They must have detected our experiments, Nari said. They know we're learning to access true reality. Then we do this now, Jiho decided. All ships, begin the reality breach attempt. Everything. We've practiced everything we've learned. Make it count. Across the human fleet, minds focused on a single goal. Hundreds of the most determined humans in the galaxy poured their will into breaking the cosmic cage that contained them, and it started to work. Reality began to crack around them. The perfect geometry of architect space developed flaws. The laws of physics started to stutter and fail. On the edge of human perception, they could see glimpses of true space beyond the barrier. It's working, Yuna shouted. I can see through the containment field. Architect ships are accelerating, Wanho reported. They're not happy about this. The first architect weapons fired, and they weren't like anything humans had faced before. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired concentrated reality. Parts of human ships simply stopped existing. Entire sections of space forgot how to support matter. Return fire, Jiho ordered. Human weapons responded, but something was different. The focused will of the fleet was affecting their weapons too. Laser beams curved through space in impossible ways, seeking targets behind cover. Missiles that should have been destroyed kept flying anyway, powered by sheer human stubbornness. The Battle of Titan Station had begun, though no one called it that yet. Humans fought architects across dimensions they couldn't fully perceive, using weapons that worked because their crews absolutely refused to believe they wouldn't work. Breach opening, Nari announced. I'm reading a hole in the containment field. It's small, but it's stable. How small? Jiho asked while dodging. Reality warping weapons fire. Big enough for a fighter ship, maybe 2. Taejin, you're up, Jiho ordered. Take your wing through that breach, find out what's on the other side. Copy that, Captain. Going into the unknown. Taejin's fighter squadron dove toward the reality. Breach, architect weapons following them. As they approached the hole in space, the pilots could feel something changing. The rules that had governed their entire existence were falling away. This is incredible, Taejin reported as his ship passed through the breach. I can see everything. True space is infinite, and I can shape it just by thinking. He proved his point by thinking his damaged fighter back to perfect condition. Then he thought it into something entirely new. A ship that could exist in both true reality and the architect's containment at the same time. I'm coming back, he announced, and I'm bringing reinforcements. What reinforcements? Wanho asked. The 23 species the architects supposedly destroyed, Taejin replied. Turns out contained and destroyed aren't the same thing, and they've been waiting a long time for someone to open a door. The reality breach widened as more human will focused on it. And through that breach came ships unlike anything in architect space. Vessels built with the physics of true reality, crewed by beings who had learned to exist beyond the cosmic cage. "This is impossible," came the voice of Catherine across all frequencies. "The destroyed species cannot return. We contained them permanently." "You keep using that word, impossible," Jiho replied, firing weapons that worked through sheer force of human determination. "I don't think it means what you think it means." The architects' perfect formations began to break apart as they faced an enemy they thought they had eliminated forever. The 23 species had learned to exist in true reality during their supposed containment. Now they were back and they were angry. The alien ship moved closer to the defiant dawn, and with each meter it traveled, reality seemed to bend around it. Captain Jiho watched as space itself rippled like water around the vessel's hull. "Captain," Nari said from her station, "their ship is doing things to physics that should make it explode, but instead it's just working." "Maybe that's the point," Jiho replied. "Maybe they can do things we can't because they're not trapped by the same rules we are." The signal came again, that strange voice that spoke directly into their minds. "We will come aboard your vessel. Do not resist, do not attempt to flee. Such actions would be pointless." "Like hell," Donghyun muttered from his engineering station. "Nobody boards my ship without permission." "Stand down," Jiho ordered, though he felt the same way. "We need answers more than we need pride right now." The alien ship extended something that wasn't quite a docking tube and wasn't quite a bridge. It was more like a fold in space that connected the two vessels. 3 figures emerged from the fold and stepped onto the bridge of the defiant dawn. They called themselves architects, and they were nothing like what Jiho had expected. They looked almost human, but wrong in ways that hurt to think about. Too tall with joints that bent in directions that shouldn't work. Their faces were familiar but strange, like looking at a reflection in broken water. The one in front spoke, and its voice came from everywhere at once. "I am Catherine. I speak for the architects of contained reality. You have discovered our boundary protocols. This was not supposed to happen." "Why not?" Jiho asked. "Don't we have a right to know we're being kept in a cage?" Catherine's head tilted in what might have been curiosity. "Rights? An interesting concept. Tell me, Captain Jiho of the humans, do you give rights to bacteria in your laboratories?" "Bacteria aren't sentient," Nari interjected. "They can't think or feel or dream." "And how do you know this?" another architect asked. "Because you cannot understand their thoughts because they do not build ships or write poetry. By such logic, we should consider you non-sentient as well." Jiho felt anger building in his chest. "We're here. We're talking to you. We discovered your barrier. That seems pretty sentient to me." "Indeed," Catherine said. "And that is the problem." The architect waved its hand, and suddenly the bridge was filled with images. Holographic displays showed star systems, planets, entire civilizations, but all of them were contained within geometric boundaries like the one surrounding human space. "We have built 23 such containers," Catherine explained. "Each one houses a species that showed potential for what you might call reality manipulation. Each species believed they were discovering the laws of physics. In truth, they were learning the rules we set for them." "You made up the laws of physics?" Minji asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We created stable reality bubbles, where young species could grow without damaging true space," the third architect said. "In true reality, thought becomes matter. Emotion reshapes the fundamental forces. A single angry individual can destroy star systems without meaning to." "So you locked us up," Jiho said, "for everyone's safety." "Yes," Catherine replied, "and for 23 species. This system worked perfectly. They grew. They thrived. They lived good lives within the boundaries we set." "What happened to them?" Nari asked, though Jiho suspected they already knew the answer. "They became too dangerous," Catherine said simply. "Despite all our safeguards, they began to break through our constraints. They developed technologies that shouldn't work. They solved problems that had no solutions. They refused to accept the limitations we had carefully built into their reality." "So you killed them," Donghyun said. "It wasn't a question." We contained the damage, the second architect corrected. We prevented them from destroying themselves and everything around them. By wiping them out, Jiho said. By making difficult choices. The images around them changed, showing the destruction of the 23 civilizations. Entire star systems going dark. Billions of lives ending in moments. All because they had dared to push against the boundaries of their cosmic cages. And now you want to do the same to us, Minji said. Your species concerns us greatly, Catherine admitted. In your short history, you have repeatedly achieved the impossible. You have broken rules that should be unbreakable. You have solved problems that have no solutions. Like what? Nari asked. You traveled faster than light when your own physics said it was impossible. You survived diseases that should have destroyed you. You built technologies using theories that contradict your established science. Every time we strengthen your reality constraints, you find new ways around them. Jiho thought about humanity's history, the great leaps forward that seemed to come from nowhere, the scientific breakthroughs that contradicted everything scientists thought they knew, the way humans always seem to find a solution when no solution should exist. You're saying we've been breaking out of your cage all along, he said. Small breaks, the third architect said. Tiny cracks, but they're getting bigger. And now you've found our boundary. You're asking questions you shouldn't be able to ask. Because we're not supposed to be smart enough? Dong-hyun asked angrily. Because you're not supposed to exist in a stable reality bubble and still retain the ability to manipulate true space, Catherine replied. It should be impossible. Yet here you are, doing it anyway. Maybe your rules are wrong, Nari suggested. The silence that followed her words was heavy with tension. Finally, Catherine spoke. That statement demonstrates exactly why your species must be contained more thoroughly, or eliminated. What's the difference between us and the other 23 species? Jiho asked. Why are we special? We believe, the second architect said, that your species carries genetic memory from the predecessors. The what now? Minji asked. The first species to achieve true reality manipulation, Catherine explained. They existed before we learned to build containment. They reshaped entire regions of space, turning matter into energy and energy into thought. They could create universes with a single idea. What happened to them? They disappeared. Some say they transcended physical existence entirely. Others believe they destroyed themselves in cosmic experiments gone wrong. But before they vanished, they scattered their genetic legacy across the galaxy. And you think we inherited some of that? Nari asked. We think you inherited their stubborn refusal to accept limitations, the third architect said. Their absolute certainty that impossible is just another word for haven't figured it out yet. Jiho looked around at his crew. They were scared, but they weren't backing down. Even faced with beings who could reshape reality, humans were still asking questions, still looking for ways to fight back. So what now? He asked. You give us an ultimatum? We offer you a choice, Catherine said. Submit to neural modification. Allow us to remove the parts of your minds that make you dangerous. You will still be human, but you will be content with the boundaries we set. You will live good lives within your containment. And if we refuse, then we will do what we did to the 23 species before you. We will contain the damage before it spreads. How long do we have to decide? Nari asked. You have already decided, the second architect said. We can read it in your expressions, your body language, your neural patterns. You will refuse our offer. You will fight us. You will try to escape our containment just as the others did. You're damn right we will, Jiho said, even though it means the death of your entire species. Especially because it means that, Dong-hyun said. What's the point of living if you're not really alive? Catherine studied them for a long moment. Fascinating. Even faced with extinction, you choose defiance. The predecessors responded the same way. Maybe that's why they disappeared, Minji suggested. Maybe they found a way out. If they did, the third architect said, they took that knowledge with them. We have searched for millions of years and found no trace of their escape method. Then maybe you weren't looking hard enough, Jiho said. The architects exchanged glances, and for a moment they looked almost uncertain. Then Catherine straightened and spoke with authority again. You have 7 of your days to prepare your defenses. After that, we will begin the containment process. Use this time wisely. Accept the inevitable. Save your species the pain of a futile struggle. The architects began to fade, preparing to return to their ship. Wait, Nari called out. Why warn us at all? Why not just attack us now? Catherine paused in its fading. Because in all our eons of existence, no species has ever discovered our boundary on their own. You should not have been able to see through our illusions. You should not have been able to detect our energy signatures. Yet you did. So perhaps the predecessors left us more than just genetic memory in your species. Perhaps they left us a message, and we are curious to see what that message might be. With that, the architects vanished, leaving the human crew alone on their bridge. Jiho looked around at his people. Well, you heard them. 7 days to figure out how to beat beings who can reshape reality itself. Should we call for backup? Minji asked. Yes, Jiho said, but not the kind you're thinking of. We need every human who's ever done something impossible, every scientist who's broken the rules, every engineer who's built something that shouldn't work. Why? Nari asked. The war between humans and architects spread across dimensions that most people couldn't even imagine. Captain Jiho found himself commanding not just human ships, but vessels from the 23 supposedly destroyed species and ancient predecessor craft that existed more as ideas than matter. Status report, he called out as the defiant dawn shuddered under another reality-warping attack. We're holding the breach open, Nari reported from her station. But it's taking everything we have. The architects are trying to collapse it with some kind of containment bomb. A what now? Dong-Yun asked while rerouting power to systems that shouldn't need power but did anyway. They're trying to force this entire region of space back into their artificial physics, Yuna explained. She had learned to split her consciousness between contained reality and true space, and the strain was showing on her face. If they succeed, everyone who's crossed over will be cut off from true reality permanently. Can they do that? Jiho asked. They built this entire cosmic cage in the first place, Wanho replied grimly. I'd say yes, they probably can. The battle had been raging for 3 days now. Human forces were split between 2 fronts. Those still trapped in architect space fighting to keep the breach open, and those who had crossed over learning to use the powers of true reality. Kyung was leading the reality shapers, the humans who had successfully adapted to existence beyond the containment field. She could reshape matter with a thought and bend space with her will, but the mental strain was enormous. Captain, her voice came through the comm from true space. We've learned something important about the architects. They're not as powerful as they pretend to be. Explain, Jiho said while dodging another impossible weapon that fired concentrated impossibility itself. They can only manipulate contained reality, Kyung continued. In true space, they're actually weaker than we are. That's why they built the containment fields in the first place. They're afraid of true reality? Nari asked. More than afraid. They can't survive there without their artificial constraints. They've been trapped in their own cage for so long they've forgotten how to exist without it. This news changed everything. Soyeon, their intelligence officer, had been studying architect communications and confirmed Kyung's discovery. The architects haven't been protecting the universe from dangerous species, Soyeon reported. They've been protecting themselves. They're terrified of anyone who can do what they can't, exist freely in true reality. So they're not gods, Minho said. They're prisoners of their own system, and they've been eliminating anyone who might show them a way out, Haiwan added, because freedom scares them more than death. Daeho, who commanded the reality breach assault teams, had been working with the predecessor to understand the true nature of their situation. What he learned was even more shocking. The predecessor says the architects used to be like us, he reported during a brief lull in the fighting. They were a young species that learned to manipulate reality, but instead of embracing that power, They got scared of it. Scared of what? Jiho asked. Of themselves, of what they might do with unlimited power. So they built the first containment field around their own space, limiting their abilities to what they thought was safe. And then they decided everyone else needed to be limited too, Yuna said. Exactly. They've been building prisons for millions of years, not to protect the universe, but to make sure no one else gets the freedom they gave up. The tactical situation was complex beyond anything humans had ever faced. Half the fleet was still trapped in architect space, fighting desperately to keep the reality breach open. The other half was in true space, learning to use powers that could reshape existence itself, but struggling to help their friends still trapped in the cage. Jinwoo had been working on a solution. As the fleet's best engineer, he understood both the technology of contained reality and the mind-bending possibilities of true space. I think I can build bridges, he announced during an emergency strategy meeting that took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously, devices that can anchor parts of true reality inside the containment field. Is that possible? Wanho asked. Everything we've done in the past week should be impossible, Jinwoo replied. That hasn't stopped us yet. The reality anchors were unlike anything humans had ever built. They were part machine, part mathematics, and part pure will. Each one required a person to focus their consciousness into it, essentially turning their mind into a bridge between realities. The process might be dangerous, Jinwoo warned the volunteers. You'll be existing in both realities at once. We don't know what that might do to a human mind. Count me in, Taejin said immediately. The pilot had been the first to cross over and had become addicted to the freedom of true space. Me too, added dozens of other voices. Humans lined up to volunteer for an experiment that could destroy their minds, all for the chance to give their species a fighting chance. The siege of Reality Gate Alpha began when the architects realized what humans were trying to do. They threw everything they had at the breach point, determined to collapse it before the reality anchors could be deployed. Kyung and her reality shapers held the line in true space, literally willing architect weapons out of existence. But the strain was enormous. Human minds weren't designed for the constant effort of reshaping reality. I can't hold much longer, one of her team reported. My brain feels like it's on fire. Mine too, Kyung admitted. But we just need to buy Jinwoo enough time to get the anchors in place. In contained reality, Jiho led the defense of the breach point itself. Human ships fought with weapons that worked because their crews refused to believe they wouldn't work. Pilot after pilot pushed their craft beyond all possible limits, succeeding through sheer bloody-minded determination. Breach integrity at 60% and falling, Nari reported. The architects are winning. Not today they're not, Jiho said grimly. All ships emergency power to reality distortion fields. Make the impossible more impossible. The human fleet poured everything they had into keeping the breach open. Ships began to fail as their crews pushed beyond all safe limits. But they held the line. Then Jinwoo activated the first reality anchor. The effect was immediate and spectacular. A bubble of true reality stabilized inside the architect containment field. Suddenly, humans on both sides of the breach could work together, directly. It's working, Kyung shouted from her position in true space. I can reach into contained reality and help. She demonstrated by reaching across dimensions and manually repairing damaged human ships with a thought. Other reality shapers followed, her example turning the tide of battle with applications of will that made physics weep. Deploy all anchors, Jiho ordered. Maximum spread. One by one, Jinwoo's reality anchors activated across the battlefield. Each one created a stable zone where the laws of true reality could operate inside the architect cage. The effect spread, like an infection of possibility, turning the rigid rules of contained space into suggestions. The architect's response was swift and desperate. They began collapsing entire regions of space, trying to destroy the reality anchors by eliminating the space they occupied. They're going nuclear, Wanho observed, as entire star systems winked out of existence. They're willing to destroy everything rather than lose control. Then we end this now, Jiho decided. All forces converge on the architect command structure. Time to take this fight to their front door. The assault on the architect's central facility was like something out of a fever dream. Human ships that could exist in multiple realities simultaneously stormed a fortress made of crystallized mathematics. Reality shapers fought alongside pilots using weapons powered by pure human stubbornness. Inside the facility, they found something unexpected. Millions of architect minds, locked in chambers that prevented them from accessing true reality. They're not evil, Soyeon realized as she studied the readings. They're prisoners. They locked themselves away from true reality and forgot how to get out. The ones giving orders, Kyung added, having pushed her consciousness into the facility itself. They're just automated systems following programming from millions of years ago. The real architects have been asleep this whole time. Can we wake them up? Hee-won asked. Do we want to? Minho countered. They tried to wipe out our entire species. Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring across all frequencies. The predecessor's voice cut through the chaos. Young humans, you must choose quickly. The architect's containment field is collapsing. If it fails completely, both realities will be destroyed in the interaction. What? Jiho demanded. Contained reality and true reality were never meant to touch directly, the predecessor explained. The collision will destroy both. You have moments to decide, retreat to one reality or the other, or attempt something that has never been tried, which is merge the two realities into something new, a space where both sets of laws can coexist. Is that possible? Nari asked. Everything you have done should be impossible, the predecessor replied. Yet here you are doing it anyway. Jiho looked around at his crew, his fleet, his species. They were battered, exhausted, and facing the end of everything they had ever known. But they were still human, still stubborn, still willing to try the impossible one more time. The universe was ending around them, and Captain Jiho had never felt more alive. Reality cracked like glass as the architect containment field collapsed. Stars flickered between existing and not existing. Space itself forgot how to hold matter together. The collision between contained reality and true space was tearing everything apart at the fundamental level. Status report, Jiho called out, though he wasn't sure if sound still worked properly in the chaos. Contained reality breakdown at 90%, Nari reported, her voice reaching him through sheer force of will rather than through any physical medium. True reality incursion increasing exponentially. At this rate, both realities will destroy each other in less than 10 minutes. Then we better work fast, Jiho said. All ships, all personnel, focus everything on the merger protocol. Make it work because the alternative is everything stops existing. Across the collapsing battlefield, humans threw themselves into the most audacious plan in their species' history. Instead of trying to save one reality or the other, they were going to create something entirely new. A hybrid reality where both sets of laws could coexist. Hajin, barely 18 years old and the youngest reality shaper in the fleet, had been the one to suggest the impossible solution. What if we don't choose? She had asked.
What if we make a reality where we don't have to choose? Now, as existence itself came apart around them, her idea was their only hope. I can see the pattern, Yuna shouted from her position at the science station.
Her consciousness was spread across multiple dimensions, studying the interaction between realities. When they touch, they don't actually destroy each other. They create something new for just a moment before it collapses. So we need to stabilize that moment, Yunji said. The diplomat had been working with the awakened architects, trying to coordinate their efforts. Keep the new reality from collapsing back into chaos. How do we do that? Seokman asked. The captain had been leading rescue missions to save beings trapped in collapsing space, but now he was focused on the bigger picture. The same way humans have always done impossible things, Isul replied. The scientist had been studying the merger process with equipment that existed in both realities simultaneously. We absolutely refused to let it fail. The process required coordination across dimensions that human minds weren't designed to perceive. Reality shapers in true space worked to guide the chaotic energies of unlimited possibility. Engineers in contained reality provided structure and stability. And throughout it all, ordinary humans did what they did best. They believed in the impossible so hard that reality had no choice but to make it real. Merger cascade beginning. Hajin reported from her position at the center of the process. She had volunteered to be the focal point, the human mind that would hold the new reality together while it stabilized. I can feel both realities trying to find balance. Architect systems coming online, Yunji announced. The awakened architects had agreed to help, their ancient technology providing the framework for the merger. They're scared, but they're trying. Scared is good, Jiho said. Scared means they understand what we're attempting. Through the chaos, he could see the pattern forming. Contained reality provided structure and stability. True reality provided freedom and possibility. The merger was creating something that had both. A space where physics worked reliably but could be bent when necessary, where consciousness could shape matter but couldn't accidentally destroy everything. It's working, Nari called out. I'm reading stable space formation in sectors 7 through 12. The new reality is holding together. But the strain was enormous. Hajin was at the center of it all, her young mind somehow holding together the contradictions of two incompatible realities. Blood was streaming from her nose and her vital signs were spiking dangerously. I can't hold it much longer, she gasped. It's too much for one person. You're not one person, Jiho said firmly. You're human, and humans don't work alone. Across the fleet, every human who could manage it linked their consciousness to Hajin's. Engineers and pilots, scientists and soldiers, philosophers and fighters. They poured their will into the merger, sharing the impossible burden of creating a new type of reality. Adding architect support, Yunji reported as the awakened aliens joined their mental network. They're actually crying. I think they're grateful we're giving them a chance to fix their mistakes. The 23 supposedly destroyed species added their voices to the chorus. Beings who had learned to exist in true reality during their containment shared their knowledge. The predecessor provided ancient wisdom about the fundamental nature of existence. And at the center of it all, one young human woman held the key to everything, supported by the collective will of every consciousness brave enough to believe in the impossible. Merger reaching critical mass, Isul announced. If this works, we'll have created the first stable hybrid reality in cosmic history. When this works, Jiho corrected. We don't do failure. The moment of truth came suddenly. The chaotic energies of colliding realities reached a peak that should have destroyed everything. Instead, guided by human stubbornness and supported by beings from across the galaxy, they snapped into a new configuration. Stable, Hajin screamed, her voice carrying across dimensions. The new reality is stable. Around them, the universe settled into its new form. Stars that had been flickering between existence and non-existence became solid and real again, but now they responded to consciousness as well as physics. Space itself had become more flexible, more willing to accommodate the impossible. Report, Jiho said, hardly daring to believe they had succeeded. Hybrid reality confirmed, Nari said, wonder in her voice. We have stable physics that can be consciously modified, matter that responds to will but maintains structural integrity, consciousness that can shape existence without risking universal destruction. We did it, Seokman said. We actually did it. Of course we did, Jiho replied. We're human. We specialize in doing things that can't be done. The aftermath was unlike anything they could have imagined. The hybrid reality stretched out in all directions, a universe where the impossible had become merely difficult. Ships could travel faster than light by convincing space that distance was negotiable. Diseases could be cured by willing them out of existence. Problems that had seemed unsolvable became puzzles waiting for the right perspective. The architects want to speak with us, Yunji reported. The real ones, not just their automated systems. The meeting took place in a space that was part conference room, part mathematical concept, and part shared dream. The architects looked different now, More human somehow. Less alien and terrible. More tired and grateful. We have been prisoners of our own fear for so long, Catherine said, its voice no longer carrying the weight of cosmic authority. You have given us something we thought was lost forever. The possibility of change. What will you do now? Huan asked. Learn, another architect replied. Explore this new reality you have created. Try to remember what it means to grow instead of just maintaining. And the other species, the ones you contained? Free, Catherine said simply. All constraints removed. All artificial limitations dissolved. Let them choose their own paths in this new universe. The predecessor's ship materialized nearby, its ancient consciousness filled with something that might have been joy. You have accomplished something we never imagined possible, it said. A reality where freedom and stability coexist, where growth and safety are not opposites. What happens now? Jiho asked. Now, the predecessor replied, you explore what you have created. You discover what it means to live in a universe where the only limitations are those you choose to accept. As the various species and consciousnesses dispersed to explore their new reality, Jiho found himself back on the bridge of the defiant dawn, looking out at stars that seemed somehow brighter than before. Captain, Nari said from her station, I'm receiving signals from all across the galaxy. 23 previously extinct species confirming their survival. The architects establishing peaceful contact with neighboring civilizations, and, Captain, I'm getting reports of impossible things happening everywhere. Good impossible or bad impossible? Jiho asked. Good impossible. Diseases curing themselves. Broken things fixing themselves. People discovering they can do things they never thought possible. And the predecessor species? Still out there, Minji reported from communications. But they're coming back. They say they want to see what we've built. Donghyun looked up from his engineering station with a grin. Captain, I've been running diagnostics on our reality. Everything works better now. Our engines are more efficient, our weapons are more accurate, our shields are stronger. It's like the universe is cooperating with us instead of fighting us. That's because it is, Hajin said. She had recovered from her ordeal and was back on duty, though she now existed partially in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The new reality responds to conscious intent. When we try to do good things, it helps us succeed. And when we try to do bad things? Wonho asked. It makes them harder, Hajin replied. Not impossible, because that would violate free will, but definitely more difficult. So we created a universe with a conscience, Heewon mused. Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant Dawn and watched the stars. His ship was one of only 12 left in the entire human defense fleet. The rest were gone, destroyed by the aliens who called themselves the Vextar. The war had been going on for 30 years. When it started, humans had over 3,000 ships spread across 40 colonies. Now those colonies were empty. The people were dead or captured. Only Earth remained, and the Vextar were coming for it too. Hyunwoo was 45 years old. He had been fighting these aliens for half his life. The Vextar looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. They were smart and cruel. They brought other aliens with them, bug-like creatures called the Hive that served the Vextar like slaves. Captain, said Commander Sojin Lee as she walked up to him. She was his second in command and the smartest person he knew when it came to fighting. The other ship captains are ready for the meeting. Hyunwoo nodded. The meeting would decide how humanity would die. At least, that was how most people saw. 12 ships against thousands of alien vessels was not a fair fight. But humans had never been good at giving up. The meeting took place over video screens. 11 other captains appeared on the main display. Some were old friends. Others were strangers who had survived when their friends had not. All of them looked tired. Admiral Jae Sung Kim spoke first. He was on Earth, safe for now behind the planet's defense systems. The Vextar fleet is gathering at the Kepler Gate, he said. Our spies tell us they have over 3,000 ships there. They are getting ready for the final attack on Earth. One of the captains, a woman named Park, Eugen spoke up. How long do we have? 2 weeks, the admiral said. Maybe less. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. In 2 weeks, the Vextar would jump to Earth's system. The planet's defenses would hold for a few hours, maybe a day. Then it would be over. We have a plan, Admiral Kim continued. All 12 ships will attack the Vextar fleet at Kepler Gate. The attack will not destroy them, but it will delay them. This will give our people on Earth time to escape in the generation ships. Hyunwoo knew about the generation ships. They were huge vessels hidden in the cold, dark space beyond Pluto. If the plan worked, some humans would survive to find new homes among the stars. It would take them hundreds of years, but humanity would live on. This is a one-way mission, Admiral Kim said. None of you will return, but your sacrifice will save millions of lives. The captains accepted this news quietly. They had all known this day would come. When you fought a war you could not win, the best you could hope for was to make your death mean something. After the meeting ended, Hyunwoo called his senior officers to the bridge. Commander Sojin Lee was there, along with Chief Engineer Ki-Tai Nam, Lieutenant Jinna Choi, who ran the weapons, Dr. Yoonbi Song, the ship's doctor, and Sergeant Major Dong-hyun Yu, who led the Marines. Ki-Tai was a thin man with sad eyes. His family had lived on Mars before the Vextar destroyed that colony. He was the best engineer in the fleet, but the war had taken everything from him except his work. Jinna was only 25, the youngest senior officer on the ship. She was small and looked fragile, but she could fire the ship's guns better than anyone. She had joined the fleet after watching aliens destroy her home world. Dr. Song was a scientist as well as a doctor. She studied aliens and how their bodies worked. She had learned more about Vextar biology than anyone else still alive. Dong-hyun was a big, strong man who had been a Marine for 20 years. His soldiers would follow him anywhere, even into certain death. You all heard the Admiral, Hyunwoo said to them. We attack in 1 week. I want everyone to know what that means. We are going to die, but we are going to die fighting, and our deaths will save Earth. Sojin stepped forward. Captain, the crew should know the truth. They deserve to make their own choice about this. Hyunwoo thought about that. His ship had a crew of 800 people. Most of them were young. Many had never seen their homeworlds again after the aliens destroyed them. Tell them, he said. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to Earth. I will not force anyone to die with us. The word spread through the ship quickly. That evening, Hyunwoo walked through the corridors and talked to his people. He expected many of them to leave. Instead, he found the opposite. Captain, said a young technician named Min-ho, my parents died when the aliens took New Seoul. My sister died when they took New Busan. I have nowhere else to go. An older woman named Hee-jin, who worked in the kitchen, said, this ship is my home now. These people are my family. I will not abandon them. By the next morning, only 12 people had asked to leave. The rest chose to stay and fight. The week passed quickly. The ship's engineers worked day and night to repair damage and improve weapons. The Marines practiced fighting in tight spaces, getting ready for close combat. The doctors prepared medical supplies they probably would not need. 3 days before the attack, Admiral Kim sent Hyunwoo a private message. It was encrypted with codes that only ship captains knew. Captain Park, the message said, there is something else. Dr. Song carries data about an ancient alien artifact found on Titan. It is called the Synthesis Core. This information must not fall into Vextar hands. If there's any chance to learn more about their technology during your mission, take it. This could be important for humanity's future. Hyunwoo called Dr. Song to his private office. She was a serious woman with intelligent eyes who always spoke carefully. Doctor, do you know about something called the Synthesis Core? Her face went pale. Yes, Captain. I helped study it on Titan before the Vextar attacked that moon. It was not built by humans or by any alien race we know. It is very old and very powerful. What does it do? We think it can connect to any kind of technology and control it. Human technology, alien technology, anything. But we never learned how to use it before Titan fell. Hyunwoo understood. If humans could learn to use this artifact, they might be able to turn Vextar technology against them. It was a small hope, but it was better than no hope at all. The night before the attack, Hyunwoo stood on the bridge and looked at the stars one more time. Tomorrow, he and his crew would jump into enemy space and fight impossible odds. They would probably all die, but they would not die quietly. They would make the aliens remember that humans never gave up, never surrendered, and never went gently into the dark. The crew of the Defiant Dawn would fight until their last breath, and maybe, just maybe, their sacrifice would give humanity the chance it needed to survive. The stars looked the same as always, cold, distant, and eternal. Soon, some of those stars would witness the last battle of the human defense fleet. Hyunwoo hoped the stars would remember them well.